How will the election affect buying a small business? So far this cycle, we haven't seen a lot of real policy from any candidates, so it's a little hard to assess. But in our view, we don't think either Trump or Harris will be particularly hostile towards small business acquisition. Now, the Biden administration gave us some of the best rule changes we've seen to the standard operating procedures of buying a business. They lowered the down payment required from buyers to 5 down to technically 0%, even though most banks won't actually do it at 0. 2.5 is typically the lower. But effectively under the administration, the down payment requirement went from 5 to 2.5, meaning everyone's buying power was double. And we don't expect to see the Harris administration reverse any of that. A lot of why that was done was to make funds available to traditionally underserved communities, and we don't see a Harris reversing that. Now, the Trump administration did a great job administering plans like PPP and helping small business owners get through COVID and the shutdowns. So I think in general policy, both parties are going to be favorable, and in a way, we don't expect to see a lot of changes from either side. Now, where we will see big differences are going to be tax policy. Now, a lot of the tax breaks from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, or better known as the Trump tax cuts, are set to sunset in 2026. And what that means is they're just going to expire and they're going to go back to what they were before that law was passed in 2017. Now, that bill lowered taxes across the board, and particularly for small business owners. Now, if Republicans stayed in power, we expect maintaining the current level of tax rates to be a high priority, meaning it is going to take an act of Congress to keep tax rates where they are today. If we are to have Republicans in all three houses, we'd say there's an extremely high probability that that happens. And one of the biggest things that really affects the business acquisition space is the bonus depreciation that's included in that bill. So for the first several years after that was passed, when you were a buyer, you were able to depreciate 100% of the physical assets that you purchased in year one, meaning you got a huge tax break right at the beginning, right when you needed it the most to help you through that business transition. And that's slowly phasing out. So it went from 100% to 80%, and it's at 60% this year. So if you buy a business this year, it means you get to depreciate 60% of the assets. If you do it next year, it's gonna be 40, and then 20, and then 0. So if the Republicans do take power and they're able to pass their legislative agenda, we would anticipate that that 100% bonus depreciation comes back, which is a huge boom to the business buyer. And now we don't know what would happen if the Democrats were to take power. I'm not sure that we'd expect the taxes to go back to the 2017 level, because neither party really wants to be seen as raising taxes on the majority of people. But I think that bonus depreciation probably would be in trouble or likely continue its fade to 0 under a Harris administration versus it'd likely go back to 100 under a Trump administration. And of course, it is important to note, even if the bonus depreciation goes to 0, you still get to depreciate those assets, but you have to depreciate it over the expected life of the assets, not just year one. I mean, overall, we don't think either group's going to be particularly hostile to small business. Small business owners are big voters. They're big donors. There's a lot of people that work and own small businesses, so it's not a good group to pick on, but we think where the big difference might be is probably going to pin on that bonus depreciation issue.